some battles going here. I'm sure that we'll get a battle going with this next raid that's coming up. Next card off the deck is Operations card. This is one I'm thinking I want to preempt on, if for no other reason than that I want to kill some stuff and break some things. And I want to go first because in my killing stuff and breaking things, I'm going to put cubes in the rated cubes box and slow the enemy down. If I don't slow the enemy down, I'm going to be eating this this raid 11, which is not going to be a pleasant thing. So I'm going to go ahead and spend 3 action points. And again, if you're following the sequence of play flowchart on the Vassal module, we chose to preempt. So we are going to go here and go first. And I'm going to take actions here. When it is the player's operational segment, he can do one of 3 things. You can do a planning operation, which we just did, or you can do passage of time, which allows you to grow your population, but you also have to feed your population. So if you don't have enough, if you don't think you have enough corn planted, then you want to seriously consider before you do a passage of time operation. Also, you have to check for elder death during passage of time. So you got to think about that before you undertake that operation. But that operation will have to be undertaken if you want to grow your population. The operation you're going to do most often is take actions. Each family has 6 movement points with which to take actions. It costs a number of movement points equal to a raid box value of a box in order to move into that box. So for family B, for example, if I want to move him here, it's going to cost 2 of his 6 movement points. Moving here would cost him 3 more, so that's 5, and he's only got 1 left, so he can move to here. Alternately, if you want, you can plant corn, and that costs 3 movement points plus the raid box value of the raid box that family currently occupies. So for a grand total of 6 movement points, family A could use all of its movement points basically to plant corn in that box. If you want, you can spend all of your movement points to move immediately from anywhere on the map to any box of Canyon de Chelly. Conversely, if you're in any box of Canyon de Chelly, you can spend all of your movement points to move to any other raid box on the map. So that's how your movement and stuff works. In this case, I'm going to take family A and I'm going to go kill this mission up here. Let's see, how do I want to do this? I think I'm going to use family A to do this. It's going to cost me 2 movement. Actually, family A has a horse in it, so I'm going to use the parenthesized value of the raid box. So it's going to cost me 1 movement point to enter raid box 2, the parenthesized value there, plus 1 more because there's a mission in that box or an outpost in that box. So it cost me 2 of my 6 movement points to do that, and I'll track this with the MP's button. Alright, so I spent 2 of my 6 there. Now I want to raid that outpost. To raid that outpost, I spend more APs equal to the raid box value of the raid box I currently occupy. To raid an outpost, you have to be in the same box as the outpost. So I got to spend 2 more movement points, so I got 2 left. Enough, hopefully, for a getaway if this works. And then I open up the raid pool, and I'm going to draw cubes out one at a time until either the outpost is destroyed or my family draws a green cube or a bad cube out, which represents enemy soldiers or militia defenders. By the way, the color codes on the cubes is white cubes represent sheep, brown are horses, black are sheep or horses, yellow are slaves, green are Mexican or Spanish soldiers, depending on what game period you're playing, blue are American troopers, which obviously are not in the game yet. So here we go. A cube pulled out is a yellow cube. Now in this case here, we're going to ignore the slaves portion of it, and the charts, which are not in the game, dictate that when a yellow cube is pulled, the outpost takes 1 hit. The mission, you'll see, has a number 1 in the upper right-hand corner. That's how many hits it takes to kill it. Forts take 3 hits to kill. Ranchos take 2 hits to kill, so you can see where the difficulty comes in there. So I killed this mission, and what that does is he's going to go back 1 box on the raid track. So he's going to go back to box 1, and I get 1 culture point back. If he's on raid box 1 and you kill him, he goes back into the counter mix. In other words, he's off the raid track altogether. In addition to being successful there, my ferocity of that family increases by 1, so now he's a ferocity 2 family. Here's what ferocity does for you. The more ferocious you become, the harder it is for you to evade, and the more aggressive the enemy will come after you. But what it does is it gives you advantages in combat. When you roll in battle, you roll a die, and you're going to add modifiers to that die roll. A key modifier for the Diné, the Navajo, is going to be the ferocity of the battling family. So this family here is becoming more and more warlike. What a lot of people misunderstand about the Navajo is there was no central political authority within the tribe. And so what would happen is some bands of Navajo would be extremely aggressive while others were very, very pacific. And what tended to happen is the Europeans, the Mexicans, the Americans, they would treat the whole of the Navajo according to what they experienced from the more warlike ones. So a lot of times very peaceful family groups were hammered by some of these raids when they actually had nothing to do. They had done nothing to the Mexicans or the Americans. And so that is how this is represented in the game. I've only got 2 movement points left, which would be enough to enter mission the same box as the mission, but not enough movement points to execute a raid on that. And it's a very bad practice to hang out in the same box as an outpost. So I'm going to spend my last movement points to move away. I'm going to move back here for 1. And I've only got 1 MP remaining, which is not going to be of any use to me, so I'm going to stop. Now, alternately, another thing I could do, and in fact, Mike, maybe we want to do this. While I'm in this box, I could actually raid Santa Fe. What do you think of doing that?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, let's go ahead and take a stab at that. Because there's only one.
Well, no, you can't, because you have to spend. You don't have enough movement points to get across the mission to get there.
That only applies to movement, not for raids. Raids, you count the raid box value. You don't, the outposts do not apply that. That's only for movement purposes. This is technically not movement. Alright, to raid New Mexico, you spend movement points equal to the raid box value in between your family and Santa Fe, inclusive of Santa Fe, exclusive of your family. So in this case, we're going to spend a total of 2 movement points, bringing us to 0. And we're going to pull 1 cube out of the hat. And it's a brown cube, which means we stole some more horses. Goody for us. And we put it in the resources box. And while it's in that box, it can be taken at any time and placed into the family box of a family that does not have horses yet. So for now, I'm just going to leave it in the resources box because my other families really don't need it just now. And let's see, families B and C are right kind of where I want them to be. I think I'm going to take family C and I'm going to do absolutely nothing with him. And if you do nothing with a family and they are in raid boxes 1, 2, or 3 of an area, then they can gain 1 action point. So I'm going to gain 1 action point back. Family B, I want to do passage of time here pretty soon. What I'm thinking of doing with him is actually I'm going to move 1 box back for 1 movement point, leaving him 5. And to do that 1 movement point, I'm actually going to give him horses so that I can use the parenthesized value with B. So that's going to be 1 movement point instead of 2. And then I'm going to plant corn. So that's going to cost me 2 for the raid box plus 3 more. So that's my 5. And I'll put corn there in that particular box. This ought to slow the enemy raid down, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, you might want to explain how that corn works, how much it costs to plant it.
Yeah, well, to plant corn, I mentioned it earlier, but if you missed it, it costs 3 movement points plus the unparenthesized raid box where you're planting the corn. So in this case, raid box 2 plus 3, that's 5 movement points to do that. And if you move away from cornfields, they remain there. You just can't harvest them during passage of time unless you have a family there. They serve as tripwires for enemy raids. If an enemy raid enters that box, it slows them down. What that represents is a lot of times enemy columns were distracted by Navajo settlements, whether they were inhabited or abandoned, where they would burn any corn that they found or destroy any caches of food, etc. A lot of times family groups would leave caches of food behind whenever they migrated to a different area, because eventually they would come back to that area. So that ends our operational segment, and the enemy is now going to go, and none of the special conditions apply, so we're going to collect their APs. They will now use the parenthesized value on the card since we preempted, so they're only going to get 2, plus 3 for the red cubes in the Pueblos box, so that's 5, minus 2 for the cubes in the rated cubes box, so they only get 3 action points here. So we'll throw that in there. Step 3, we roll 2 dice, 1 and a 2 again. Well, box number 1 cannot flip, only box 2 flips. And it reveals an outpost and expansion instruction. Now, there are only 4 enemy APs available in the available box, which is not enough to execute the topmost instruction, so that will end the enemy's operational segment. We then go to the major event, which says in the Apaches raid New Mexico. We're going to draw 1 cube from the raid pool and consult the card. The cube that we pull is a brown one, so it's going to go into the rated cubes box. That yields the player no benefit, but it screws up the New Mexicans because what that represents is the Apaches are raiding New Mexico as well, so it's disrupting the region. On the other hand, what that has done is it's taken 1 more of the 3 brown cubes out of the raid pool, making it harder now for the Diné to raid New Mexico and steal horses, because now the Apaches have stolen all the horses. It also has got the enemy more on the alert, because for every cube taken out of the raid pool, the more likely it is you'll draw that dreaded green cube out. So in a very, very simple way, that's what's being represented there. The minor event is got a drought symbol with an X through it, and what that means is we're going to roll a die, and we're going to look at the die roll. It's a 6. We'll look at the area on the map that has the die roll 6. That turns out to be Black Mesa, and you'll see that there's a drought symbol in that area. Since there's a drought symbol in that area, we're going to take the drought marker and remove it from that area. What that represents is the land is recovered. More snowfall up in the mountains. The land is basically recovered a little bit from drought. There are basically 4 drought cards for every 1 recovery card. So the land will experience times of recovery, but most often the land is going to get drier and drier, making it more necessary for you to rely on sheep to feed your people. So that will end the card segment, or the minor event segment. We go to discard phase, and the card will be discarded.